Hey, have you ever had a reaction that was too big for the moment? Someone makes a small comment and suddenly you're flooded with anger, or you get a single piece of critical feedback and spiral for days. And afterward, you think, why did I react like that? That wasn't even a big deal. Here's what I've learned: when our reactions are disproportionate to the moment, it's usually because we're not just reacting to the moment. We're reacting to every similar moment that came before it. That comment your boss made that landed on top of every time your parent made you feel incompetent. The way your partner forgot something that landed on top of every time you ever felt invisible as a child. So today I want to talk about emotional regulation and what it actually is and why so many of us struggle with it, and how our earliest experiences shaped our capacity to stay steady when life gets turbulent. Because the thing is, regulation isn't just about controlling your emotions, it's also about having a nervous system, brain body connection that can handle those emotions. So let's start with that, with what regulation actually means. Because it's not about being calm all the time, it's not about suppressing what you feel. And it's definitely not about having it all together. Regulation is your nervous system's ability to move through emotional states and return to baseline, to feel anger without exploding, to feel sadness without drowning, to feel anxiety without spiraling. How you can be upset in the moment, but when the moment's over, you move on. Think of it like a thermostat. A well regulated system can sense when things are heating up and make adjustments. It doesn't overcorrect, it doesn't ignore the temperature. It responds appropriately and bring things back to comfortable. That's what a healthy nervous system does. It responds to stress and processes it and returns to equilibrium. But here's what most people don't realize is we're not born knowing how to regulate. We learn it or we don't. And our first teachers or our parents or our caregivers, whoever took care of us as young children. When you are a baby, you couldn't regulate yourself. You were completely dependent on your caregivers to help you manage your emotional states. And when you cried, ideally, someone came. They held you, they soothed you, co regulated with you until you calmed down. And over time, through those thousands of interactions, your brain body learned, when I'm distressed, relief comes. I can handle this because help is available. But what if it didn't come? Or what if it came sometimes but not others? What if the person who was supposed to soothe you was actually the source of your distress? then your nervous system learned something different. It learned, I'm on my own. I have to handle this myself. And distress is dangerous because no one's coming. And this is where parental woundedness enters the picture. Parents who are dysregulated, whether from their own trauma, stress, mental health challenges, or just not having the resources. If they couldn't consistently regulate themselves, then they can't co regulate with their children. And a child who doesn't experience consistent co regulation, they grow up without that reliable thermostat, right? And what this looks like in adulthood is it shows up in these different patterns depending on what we learn. And some of us learn to overregulate, shut down, go numb, disconnect from our emotions entirely. We might seem calm on the outside, but inside we've just turned everything off. We turn all the lights off. It's dark. This often happens when emotional expression, expressing any type of emotion, wasn't safe. And when showing feelings led to punishment, ridicule, or being ignored. And then there are others who learn to underregulate, to feel everything at full volume all the time. When something goes wrong, it's catastrophic. When we're happy, we're ecstatic. When we're hurt, we're devastated. Like it's all or nothing. And this often happens when our emotions were the only way to get attention. When we had to escalate to be heard, or when we never experienced the soothing that would teach us that emotions are temporary and survivable. And some of us swing between the two. Numb until we can't be numb anymore, then explosive. Controlled until something breaks through, and then we're drowning. Does that sound familiar? For most of my life, I was the calm one. I was quiet, I was observant, I was the steady one, the person everyone came to when things fell apart. And I wore it like a badge of honor, honestly. But what I didn't realize is I wasn't regulated, I was overregulated. I had learned to shut down my own needs, my own distress, my own feelings, so I could manage everyone else's, my own tolerance. I grew up being a giver, and I learned that the way to stay safe was to keep the peace, to placate, to never be the problem, but to solve the problem. I had to become the solver of problems. And I turned that into a superpower. But the cost was that I was so disconnected from myself. I couldn't tell you what I needed because I had stopped asking and I'd stopped expecting. And it was difficult to receive because I had made myself the giver. And underneath all of that calm was there was a lot that I wasn't letting myself feel. And the shift came when I realized that Regulation isn't about being steady for everyone else, but about being connected to yourself. And I had traded connection for control, and that came at a cost. So here's the neuroscience piece that I think helps all of this make sense. Your autonomic nervous system has two main modes: sympathetic, which is your gas pedal, fight or flight, and your parasympathetic, which is your brake, rest and digest. And healthy regulation means that you can move easily between these, or you can move appropriately. Stress comes, you can mobilize. Stress passes, you settle. But when you grow up in an environment of chronic stress, when your home doesn't feel safe, when you had to be hyper vigilant, you never knew what was coming, then your nervous system gets stuck in one mode or the other. And some of us get stuck with the gas pedal down, always anxious, always scanning, unable to truly relax. Even when we're safe, we're looking for threats. Others get stuck with the brake press down. They're shut down, they're foggy, disconnected, going through the motions, but not really present. And the crazy thing is, these aren't character flaws. It isn't about being strong enough or not trying hard enough. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. The training just happened to be for a war zone. So you're combat ready. You're a contender. And now that you're trying to live a normal life, living it with a combat ready system they don't jive. It doesn't work well. And so let's talk about how to build regulation that we didn't learn. How do we teach our nervous system something new after decades of patterning? It starts with understanding that regulation really is a skill. Like any skill, it can be developed. It's not about fixing what's broken, it's about building what wasn't built. And so, first, you start tracking your window of tolerance. Now, I talk about my tolerance levels all the time, not here. Your window of tolerance is the zone where you can handle stress without flipping into fight or flight or shutting down. Notice what makes you tick, what ticks you off. Notice what knocks you out of that window. Notice what helps you come back to center. And just noticing without judgment starts to create space between stimulus and response. Second, you can start to build a toolkit of regulation practices, if you will. And this is personal. What works for one person might not work for another. But things like breath work and cold exposure, movement, grounding techniques, time in nature, taking walks. These aren't just wellness trends, they're ways of communicating safety to your brain and your body. And so you have to experiment and find what actually shifts your state. And then third, you want to seek co-regulation. Remember, we learn regulation through relationship. If you didn't get it from your parents, you can't get it now from people you would consider safe. different therapists, communities where your nervous system can borrow regulation until you build your own. That might be family, it could be friends. We build it through relationships. You're not meant to do this alone. That's not weakness, that's biology. We are meant to co regulate in community. And then extend compassion to your dysregulation. When you lose it, when you shut down, when you react in ways you're not proud of, instead of shame, try curiosity. Like, what got triggered? What old wound did that moment touch? What was my mind, my body, my nervous system trying to protect me from? Because shame keeps us stuck. Compassion opens the door to change. So I want you to understand your capacity to regulate affects everything. Your relationships, your performance, your health, your sleep, your ability to be present with the people you love. When we can't regulate, we can't truly rest. We can't be intimate. We can't perform at our best. We're always managing our internal chaos instead of engaging with life. But regulation can be learned. Your nervous system can change. You can rewire your brain. The patterns you've developed for survival, they can be updated for thriving. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes patience, but it's possible. And so if you've spent your life feeling like you're too much or you're way too shut down, if you've ever wondered why you can't just calm down when everyone else seems to manage, I want you to hear this and I want you to really take this in. You are not defective. You adapted. And what was adapted can be relearned. So, I would love to hear how that sits with you. I want to make sure that you can show up as your best in work, in life, in your relationships. If this landed for you, there's more of where this came from. You can check the link in my bio for more resources that can help. And I'll see you in the next one.